I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. Hello folks. Sorry I haven't posted anything in a while. Life has been very challenging, to say the least. At least these last few weeks have been. And I will touch more on that later, but I did want to post something for today specifically because today benchmarks 1 year since I posted my first video on this channel. And I seemed it was fitting that since my first video was on McFarlane toys, why not do this video on McFarlane toys? Now, one of the biggest critiques that McFarlane toys will get from many figure collectors is that they make too many Batman figures. Now, while I can agree with this point of view to some extent, since when did any company who had the DC license prior not make too many Batman figures? How is McFarlane any different from any of these other companies from the past 30 years? Since Michael Keaton is back in the Cape and Cowl, we're going to go back and start there, because that was the turning point for not only superhero movies, but the action figures that came from them. While Toy Biz was the first to get a crack at making 1989 Batman movie products with a small line of figures, vehicles, and a playset, it was when the license reverted over to Kenner there shortly after, where Batman just exploded in the toy aisle. Luckily enough for Kenner, there would be a consistent amount of Batman media in the next few decades for them to make an endless amount of repaints in which you could swear that every color on the spectrum had to have been used at some point or another. Now, some of these repaints are great, some made you say, what the fuck? And it got to the point where they started running out of names for all these different Batman variants, to where they were using, I swear to God, almost social security numbers, or at least I do remember there was some sort of mission series that actually had like case file numbers attached to them. It got crazy. And I knew that they had to have used up every idea the day I saw a Batman that basically had the color schematic of a Reese cup wrapper. I'm pretty sure they let Phil in accounting have the final say on that one. Now, that isn't to say that Kenner was just making completely meritless efforts. Yes, they were definitely getting as much juice out of the squeeze that is the Batman property with all these crazy repaints. But again, though, they at least had some form of media to anchor onto, whether if it was a comic book series, a TV show, and of course the occasional movie that would come out. There was always that one important piece of media that was anchoring the line, if you will. Now we have two companies making Batman toys. Did you know that? McFarlane, of course, which is licensed to make the 7-inch scale line of figures, and then of course we have Spin Masters, who also has a DC license, which handles the more kid-oriented 4-inch scale of toys. And guess what? Both are heavily dominated by Batman. Putting the focus back on McFarlane, it was 2019, just days away from the 2020 new year, when I first saw DC Multiverse figures in store shelves. And I think it's safe to say that from that time till now, we've actually gotten a pretty decent character selection of DC figures and characters who are not Batman or Batman related, Justice League members withstanding. Now, I will agree with everyone on this. McFarlane? Where the fuck is my classic Wonder Woman figure? Aside from that, I really can't complain about the variety we have gotten from McFarlane thus far. Yes, there are so many Batman figures, but if there's one thing you have to hand to McFarlane, it's the fact that at least each Batman figure that they come out with is based on some form of media source material. Each figure either comes from a comic book story, a movie, a video game, a television show, an animated series, instead of just being endless nonsense repaint after repaint. And yes, while we will get those weird gold label, fully gold painted and so on and so forth, for the most part, at least we're getting a variety of Batman that could appeal to anyone and everyone based on the type of Batman that appeals to you. And need I remind you that any time there's a pre-order from McFarlane that sells out, I am willing to lay odds that it is usually a Batman figure of some kind. Too many Batman figures? I think not. I normally don't like to get too personal with my audience, and I do promise that this does still relate to Batman to some degree, but as I had said at the beginning of this video, life has been challenging in recent weeks, and the worst of it came a couple weeks ago when my mother died. As you could expect, basically the emotions that come along with that, I'm going to go through it, and I've already went through it already with my father. And the short of it was that she was in pain. She's no longer in pain, and she is reunited with my father in the afterlife. I am dedicating this video to her though, because she was always supportive of my creative outlets, and I owe a lot to her because not only did she buy me my very first action figure, but my very first action figure, you guessed it, Batman. Now this here is the 1984 Superpowers Batman. My mother bought this for me at Danny's Kids, which was a toy store on Myrtle Avenue in Queens. So if any of you viewers are from the Queens area and are just as old as I am, or at least were a kid in the 90s, you may remember Danny's Kids, have come across it at some point, and that was my go-to spot, along with KB. I was 2 years old at the time when my mom bought this for me, and this was the match that would light the fire that is a lifelong hobby of action figure collecting, and it's been here with me for 39 years out of my 41 years of existence. So thank you, Mom. So going back to the main topic of the video, again, too many Batman figures now, coming from a guy who identifies as a Spider-Man fan and a Marvel fan first. Batman will hold a special place in my heart always, as an icon and as one of the greatest action figures of all time. So there you have it, folks, 1 year down, and while I didn't expect to have such somber topics in my video, or at least what I envisioned for my 1 year anniversary video, still we're here. I have lots of good content coming up. I have been working on some videos off and on, so there will be some things coming, movies to discuss, horror, of course, more toys, absolutely, and there's even going to be some focus on my favorite horror icon, Chucky, coming up. And you know what, 1 year in, I just want to say thank you to all my subscribers, all of you who take time to watch my videos and show support and to leave comments and to discuss. I always enjoy that type of stuff, and of course, as always, if you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do.